Okay, we'll call the May meeting of the Falls Township Planning Commission to order. If we could rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the
To
flag
the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Crowe, you want to call the roll, please?
Sure. Colin Henderson?
Present.
John Henney?
Not present at the moment.
Edward Crowe? Here. Mary Leschuk? Not here. Brian Binney?
Here. All right, we have a
Okay,
quorum. Like to apologize for our late start, but we had a couple late traffic jams. So first item on our business is the Keystone Trade Center, NorthPoint, subdivide the existing leases into zoning compliant lots, 10 lots, tax parcel 13-51-001.
Everyone's been moved into the room.
All right, great. Mr. McGinnis, if you'd like to start.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Mike McGinnis from Bldg Carlin here on behalf of NorthPoint. We're in front of the Planning Commission for the subdivision of lots 3 through 8 tonight. The proposed parcels that we're going to be creating are all improved presently with existing leases and have existing businesses operated on the land. We want to essentially have the lot lines functionally mirror the lease lines. We did a similar process for what we're labeling as Building 1, which the Planning Commission reviewed. And we went to the Zoning Hearing Board earlier this month to get dimensional variances to be able to facilitate this. We have 4 waivers that we had previously identified, likely another waiver based on Mr. Jones' review letter. And I'll very briefly summarize them if I can.
Please.
A waiver we're requesting from 191-52(1)C2. That's essentially requesting a deferral for natural resource protection calculations until if or when the lots are developed further, since there are no improvements being shown. We have a waiver from 191-60A1 for the monuments, specifically with respect to Lot 3. And if you look at the Lot 3 parcel, we're requesting that waiver because of the location vis-a-vis the Delaware River. Our third waiver is 191-79C3. Similar to the first waiver request, this is a natural resource mapping waiver. We're asking again to defer this requirement because there's no earth disturbance that's proposed with respect to these lots. 191-43B is the fourth waiver that we had identified. This is really just a technical waiver. Strictly speaking, if you look at that section of the Saldo, there's a requirement that we comply with the zoning ordinance with respect to the lots that we're creating. Technically, since we went to the Zoning Hearing Board and received a few dimensional variances earlier this month, we aren't complying, which is why, in an abundance of caution, we listed this as a waiver request. The fifth waiver that I believe we will be adding based on Joe and Colleen's letter would be 191-36D. This pertains to the location of driveways vis-a-vis property lines. And again, these are conditions that are already existing with improvements. We can't really shift the property lines, so we would be asking for a waiver given the existing conditions that exist on the site. There are a couple other issues that I would like to highlight at the outset here briefly. We acknowledge that there's a zoning comment with respect to landscaping. We believe that this is an existing condition. It's an existing nonconformity, but we'll correspond with the township and with Matt and the solicitor's office, and we'll have that issue addressed, and we'll have a consensus reached on that item before we proceed in front of the supervisors. The second comment that I would address at the outset pertains to the installation of sidewalks and street trees. As I think the Planning Commission is aware, and as has been discussed when we've been in front of you before, we have deferred those improvements until we're back in front of the board for land development proposals. So we would be asking for the same thing, which is until we're in front of the board for land development, we'd ask that those improvements be deferred. And then the final comment I think that I would raise to the Planning Commission's attention is 191-43A. There's a comment in Joe's letter about creating an unbuildable area on lot 4. And certainly Greg Glitzer or Eric Clace from Gilmore who are with us, or Jeremy Michael, can add additional color. But there is a electrical substation and there are transmission lines which are present already on this proposed lot. The result of that is, regardless of any contours and shifting, there will always be an unbuildable area due to the existing infrastructure. So we just wanted to highlight that note. It's not a will comply or a waiver. It's just an item that we wanted to bring to the board's attention to provide additional information. Everything else, I believe, is a will comply. And certainly I would turn it over to anyone that would like to chime in on the board, or if Greg or Eric or Jeremy, you want to add additional information, certainly feel free to do so. Thank you.
I'll ask a question. So this is just strictly to segregate the existing leaseholds. When I look at the master plan, that master site sketch plan that was provided, it shows buildings on top of some of these lease areas. Is it anticipated that when these leases expire that these tenants will go away and more development will happen or more subdivisions will happen?
Yeah, that's correct. There are a number of existing lease areas. As the term burns off, we intend to kind of reconfigure the lots for future development.
And at that time, I note some of these roads that you have identified here just seem to end. At that time, will there be, will you look at the circulation patterns in this development and connect some of these roads so they're not all dead ends?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as part of our exercise in reconfiguring the master plan, circulation will obviously be a big consideration.
Mr. Henry, you got any questions? None at this time. Mr. Crow, you have any questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. I appreciate you guys being proactive with letting us know what's going on ahead of time and everything. One thing that you had mentioned was the sidewalks. My understanding last time we had spoke was that you don't know what side of the road you're going to put sidewalks on because that's depending on where bus stops and stuff are going to be, but you will put roads on at least one side of the road.
Yeah, that's our intention.
Okay. And the only other question I have is you mentioned 191-36D. All the other waivers look like they're partial waivers. Is this a full waiver or a partial waiver?
It's a waiver that only applies to one area.
Okay.
Actually, lots 4 and 5 split a energy drive. It's really a driveway by the time it makes it to that part of the site. So it's a waiver that only applies to part of it. So yeah, I guess could be a partial waiver.
Okay.
Ms. McGinnis, unless anybody else has anything to, Joe, Mr. Jones, you have anything?
No comments.
I have nothing else. Thank you.
Dave, is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Thank you. There's no other comments or questions from the board. I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the proposal for a major subdivision application on NP Falls Township Industrial LLC, 1 Ben Fairless Drive, NorthPoint, TMP number 13051-001 and 13051-001-012, zoned MPM, Township of Falls Township, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, JAE, project number LD 2109, with a partial waiver of 191-43B, a partial waiver of 191-52.1C2, a partial waiver of 191-60A, a full waiver of 191-36D, and another partial waiver of 191-79C3.
So just clarification, the 191-60A1 is, I believe,
191.
is the correct section.
191-60A, is that what you're talking about?
191-60A1.
Oh, I don't have a one there.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. McGinnis, does that sound correct to you?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, can I correct that?
Please poll the board.
Yeah, Colin Henderson?
Yes.
We need a second.
Oh, I'll second.
Oh, we're motivated for you guys. All right, we have a second. Colin Henderson?
Yes.
Edward Crowe? Yes. Brian Binney?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, the second item on our agenda is KA at Fairless Hills, 500 Lincoln Highway, Fairless Hills, PA, tax parcel 13-017-109, zone highway commercial, preliminary final land development to construct a 5,585 square foot Wawa food market and fueling station.
Everyone's in the room?
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, you may proceed.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Julie Von Spregelson from the law firm of Eastburn and Gray here tonight on behalf of the applicant, KA at Fairless Hills, LP. We are before you this evening for review and request for a recommendation of the applicant's preliminary final land development application and waiver request associated with the development at 500 Lincoln Highway at its intersection with Arlene's Avenue. The development consists of the construction of a 5,585 square foot Wawa convenience store with 8 multi-product fuel dispensers and associated parking, lighting, landscaping, and stormwater management improvements at the property. And since this Planning Commission is very familiar with this project, having seen this plan a number of times, and last reviewed it in March of this year relative to the conditional use applications, which included the conditional use for the fuel facilities, as well as a conditional use for the accessory drive-through. I'm not going to run through specifics on all the improvements, as again, I know that the Planning Commission is very familiar with it. I will say, though, that there was one major change made since the last time that we were before you, and that is the elimination of the accessory drive-through component of this use. So that has been eliminated, and we're reverting back to the original land development plans that didn't have the accessory drive-through use that we submitted to the township in January of this year. In the location of the accessory drive-through, there's some additional parking spaces, which again is consistent with the plans that were submitted in January of this year. We did receive review letters from the Township Fire Marshal, the Township Traffic Engineer, and the Township Engineer. The Township Traffic Engineer noted that all comments had been satisfied. There was one comment in the Fire Marshal's review letter, that's will comply. And the same with Joe Jones' review letter. That's all will comply except for the waiver request. So at this point, I would just have Justin Giannotti, the project engineer from Dynamic Engineering, run through the waiver request.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So the first waiver request is 191-36D, which requires driveways to be placed no less than 12 feet from a property line. If you guys recall, there's a subdivision that takes place, and due to the redevelopment of the shopping center, the location of the right-in driveway off of Lincoln Highway is located to be centered between the intersection and the existing driveway to the west of us, so that we are within 12 feet of that internal subdivision line. The next one is 19137B to require no less than 15 feet of open space between the curb line and any uncovered parking area and an outside wall of a dwelling. We do have parking in the front of the Wawa. We're complying with the 15-foot spacing from the building, but around the back and the side, we are less than 15 feet. This is a waiver that the Board of Supervisors previously approved for the Falls Wawa that was constructed on West Trenton Road back in 2017. Same layout in this situation, same situation. The parking is placed for customer convenience, for ADA accessibility, and for all together just convenience. This waiver also requests a permitted driveway within 12 feet. It's a double waiver just for the same section as listed before. 19137E requires no less than a 5-foot curb radius. Due to the redevelopment nature of this parking lot and that we are redeveloping the shopping center within an existing shopping center, there are some curb radii that are going to be less than 5 feet, but no less than 3. This is just a continuation of an existing non-conformance on the property. I will note that the one too is that's a partial waiver. We're only not meeting that in certain locations. Where we can on our site, we're complying with the 5-foot minimum. The next waiver is a combined.
Where was the partial? On which line? What number?
Partial was on 191-37E.
Thank you.
On your plan here, where you've put the driveway off of Arlene's Avenue to the south as your plan's configured, you have an island shown as 3-foot radiuses, so that is on your parcel, so you're not just complying, it's not just related to the other parcel.
That's a full waiver. Okay.
Yeah, there was partial into the effect that some of the radiuses on our site, radii on our site are 5 foot. We're saying that all of them are not less than 5. Where we can comply with 5, we are. That was the partial nature of that.
Okay.
So, sorry, that was the next waiver is 191-39G and 191-61A. They're similar, so we grouped them together. This is a partial waiver also, and this is to request sidewalk not to be installed along the entire Lincoln Highway frontage. We are providing sidewalk along the Wawa portion of our site, and the Arlene's along the Wawa partial along Lincoln Highway and Arlene's. It is technically infeasible for us to continue the sidewalk along the existing shopping center parcel. So this is just a partial waiver, and we can discuss that further if necessary.
It's going to be necessary.
Sure. We can do that now, or we can go through the rest, or however you would like to proceed with that.
Well, I guess we can tackle that now. So my
Sure.
understanding was that was a condition of the approval.
Condition of approval to provide it along the Wawa parcel or along the entire frontage was your
Well, you're not even showing it
Understand.
across the frontage of the Wawa.
Well, the reason that the plans do not show it at this point, we are going to comply with it, and I can share a screen and I can show you that our PennDOT HOP plans do show that sidewalk along the Wawa parcel. Because of the way this project unfolded that we withdrew the drive-through, we reverted back to the original revision 0 of the plans. That is what Mr. Jones and your consultants reviewed for discussion tonight. So moving forward, that sidewalk will be shown. It will be on the plans. It just wasn't on the plans because the plans reviewed were those of dated back in January 2021. So before all of the discussion and the conditional use hearings were had. So our HOP plans do show that sidewalk. We are committed to showing that sidewalk up into and across the right-in access off of Lincoln Highway, all the way up Arlene's along our frontage, and we are also providing a crosswalk across Lincoln Highway as well. Along the existing shopping center, if that was part of your understanding, there's a grass strip that I can show you that has utility poles, and there is not enough area located within that frontage to provide that sidewalk. We could show you aerials or other exhibits to your satisfaction, but we can discuss that further as well.
I I'd personally like to see the sidewalk. If you can convince Mr. Jones that it's not feasible, that's one thing, but I personally like to see the sidewalk.
Understood. Now, we did look into it. It wasn't just ignored. It's just, there's utility poles that run along the entire frontage. The grass strip along the existing shopping center is 5 foot and has a heavy slope on it. And moving the utility poles is almost unfeasible to do without impacting utility service throughout that entire quarter.
And it will remove green area.
Yeah.
It will remove some green area as well. There's a little bit of green area along the frontage there. That would have to be eliminated.
Correct.
And there isn't sidewalk.
Yeah, so the properties,
Further.
so
Go ahead.
to the west of us, there's the existing shopping center on the corner of Pennsylvania Avenue and Lincoln Highway does not have sidewalk. In fact, the parking stalls have no grass strip between Lincoln Highway and the right-of-way. They're directly up against the right-of-way, so it's infeasible for them to ever install sidewalk without removing those parking stalls. And on the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue, the next adjacent would be the KFC, which does not have sidewalk either. So it's not providing sidewalk. We do not have safe passage to Pennsylvania Avenue and beyond, regardless along our frontage. That's why we're focusing on providing sidewalk to the Orleans corridor and Orleans intersection and updating the crossing across Lincoln Highway as well.
Which was also the condition of approval that I think you're speaking of. That was relative to the conditional use application for the fuel facilities. And that was for the Wawa parcel only. That's what it was relative to, and that was a condition. Unfortunately, we do not have the written decision yet that stated that condition, but hopefully we'll be receiving it soon. But again, the Wawa parcel is a subdivided parcel.
Okay. Thank you. Continue, please.
Sure. Moving on, the waiver number 5 would be 19148.A to not require street trees along Lincoln Highway due to insufficient area. Providing the street trees proposes safety risks and conflicts with the existing overhead utility lines, maintaining clear sight triangles at driveways and intersections, and providing adequate brand visibility for safe perception reaction time for drivers traveling along Lincoln Highway. We are significantly increasing the green space along Lincoln Highway and Orleans by complying with the 100-foot setbacks and the parking setbacks. In the existing condition, this parking is almost up on the right-of-way. Significant green space improvement, and we also have a professionally designed landscaping on site, which provides the screening and buffer of cars and the new parking lot area. It's just the complying with the street tree requirement was not feasible. I will also add that the Falls Township Shade Tree Commission approved the plan as shown with no street trees. This is also a continuation of an existing non-conforming site condition along the majority of the Lincoln Highway corridor. Up and down, there's very little trees along that street frontage. On your next letter, the next one would be 19178C2. This is a partial waiver to provide an aerial map in lieu of providing the full survey for all features within 200 feet of the lands to be subdivided or developed. There's one that we're going to add on tonight that's not in the waiver request letter in front of you. That is 19151D. This is through a discussion with Mr. Jones' office prior to the meeting to provide less than 25 feet wide driveways for two-way traffic. We're providing 30 feet, 35 feet, and 25 feet throughout the Wawa parcel. On the existing shopping center to remain, there's one section of drive aisle that's at 24 feet, just because we're trying to provide traffic islands. And that's the only area, so that would be a partial waiver as well.
There's a portion of the driveway, if you extend the right turn lane in from Orleans Avenue, the quick entrance, and you can continue towards the other parking lot, you seem to indicate an area where the driveway is only 23 feet.
Oh, just connecting through. So it'll be, so I'll amend that waiver then to just say to 23.1 feet.
Mr. Jones, you have objections to that?
We do not have any objections to those waivers.
Is there any board questions? I'm trying to figure something out. I'm looking at your grading plan, and it appears like there's 4 grates underneath the dumpsters. Is that the case?
Four grates underneath the dumpsters. No, that is not the case. I'm not. Are you looking at the sheet 7 of the grading plan?
Correct.
Yeah, there's.
If I could weigh in, I think they might be proposed grades, spot grades.
Grades?
Correct.
Because everything else okay, okay, I took everything else that says G as being a grate of an inlet or manhole.
No. G just means grade shot, so that's just a grade elevation
Okay.
at the corners of the trash enclosure.
In the middle of the trash enclosure.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Crowe, you have any questions? Oh, Mr. Haney's joined us.
Yes, so.
Mr. Haney, you have any questions?
Hey, quiet.
He had a question. Mr. Jones, you have anything else to add?
Nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
If there's nothing else is there any public comment, Dave?
No public comment.
Thank you. There's no public comment, there's no other questions. I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I guess I'll make a motion, to accept preliminary and final land development application for KA in Fairless Hills, 500 Lincoln Highway, TMP 13-017-109, zoned highway commercial, Township of Falls, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, JEE project number LD 21-04. Data plan January 22nd, 2021, with the following waivers. 191-36D waiver, waiver for 191-37B, partial waiver for 191-37E, a partial waiver for 191-39G, a partial waiver for 191-48A. That was a full waiver for 191-48A. Partial waiver for 191-61A. Full waiver for 191-78C2, and an added partial waiver for 191-51D.
Yes. Yes. Mr. Crowe, 191-78C2, I believe is a partial waiver to provide an aerial map in lieu of the 200-foot survey. That's
191, what, 191 what?
78C2.
191 to
Correct.
78. Oh, it's a partial waiver, okay. A partial waiver.
I'll have if there's a second.
I'll second.
Hold the board, please.
Yes, John Henney?
Yes.
Colin Henderson?
Yes.
Edward Crowe? Yes. And Brian Benny?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
The next item on our agenda is Tyburn Road Associates, 418 Tyburn Road, Fairless Hills, PA, tax parcel 13-028-066 and 13-028-068, zone PIP for the preliminary final construction of a 5,000 square foot warehouse and connecting building to the existing building. Before we start, I disclose the fact that these plans were prepared by my office, so I will be abstaining from voting. So, Mr. Lyons, if you'd like to proceed.
Great, thank you, and thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Dan Lyons. I'm here from the law firm of Obermeyer, Redmond, Maxwell, and Hipple. I'm here on behalf of the applicant Tyburn Road Associates. Also here with me this evening is Kevin Wolf from Anderson Engineering, and I'd like to start with a brief introduction of the project. Applicant and owner of the property is Tyburn Road Associates, and the property is located at 418 Tyburn Road in Falls Township. Property is currently improved with a 3,362 square foot warehouse that the applicant uses as and for an electrical contracting business, which is a permitted use within the PIP, Planned Industrial Park zoning district within the property where the property is located. Property at issue is comprised of two adjacent parcels, both owned by the applicant, one consisting of 1.59 acres and the other consisting of 0.18 acres. The applicant proposes to consolidate the two parcels into one 1.77 acre parcel and expand the development of the property with a 5,000 square foot warehouse addition. The warehouse addition is proposed to be connected to the existing warehouse with a 10-foot by 15-foot building connection. The warehouse addition is proposed to facilitate the existing use, and no additional use is proposed. In association with the project, the applicant was previously before the Falls Township Zoning Hearing Board, where the requested relief was granted by a written decision dated February 12th, 2021. Following the zoning relief, the project is zoning compliant in all respects. We are here today requesting your recommendation of preliminary final approval of the instant land development application. And in connection with the same, we have submitted a waiver request letter and received review letters from the township professionals. As a general point of matter, I believe each of the comments are either will complies or addressed by the approved zoning relief. But at this time, we're happy to address any comments or questions you may have with respect to the project or the requested waivers or comments within the review letters. So we can go through each of the 14 or 15 waivers or address more specifically any comments or questions you may have.
That's our standard procedure, so I would suggest we stick to that.
Great, thank you. I'll kick that over to Mr. Wolf if he's able to go through the waivers.
Yes, I can do that. I'm just getting the letter right here. There are quite a few waivers.
Hey,
but,
Kevin, turn up your microphone. We can't hear you.
is that better?
No, not really.
It's turned up all the way. I don't know.
Can you just speak a little louder, maybe?
Yeah, I guess I can. I don't know why. I don't really know why it's not working. Anyway, I'll try. Can you hear me if I get a little bit closer, maybe? How about now? Is that better?
It's better.
Well, there are quite a few waiver requests. The first one is section 191-8D, and we're asking for to be allowed for the presentation of a preliminary plan and a final plan. The ordinance requires them to be considered a separate submission, but we'd like to have this.
Yeah, we're not making it out. So maybe Mr. Lyons, you could go through it.
Sure, I could run through them. The first one is section 191-8D, which requires the preliminary and final plan shall each be considered a separate submission. Here we are requesting to do them in one due to the limited nature of the plans and improvements on an already developed site. Section 187.12.E, which requires the minimum top width of the detention basin berm shall be 10 feet. We are requesting less than 10 feet as we cannot provide a 10-foot berm width because of space limitations, constrained by proximity of basin to the right-of-way line and existing septic system. The cutoff trench width is reduced to match the berm width. Cutoff trench depth and side slopes are in accordance with the ordinance. Section 187.12.I, all outlet pipes through the basin berm shall be reinforced concrete pipe having O-ring joints. We are requesting ductile iron pipes to be installed because minimum slope of site will not allow sufficient cover for concrete pipe. Section 187-12, .12.L. Any stormwater management facility, i.e. detention basin, designed to store runoff and requiring the use of a berm or earthen embankment shall be designed such that the minimum height of the embankment shall have a minimum of 1 foot of freeboard above the maximum pool elevation. Here, the invert elevation of the pipe under Tyburn Road is the determining factor of the berm elevation, and the dimensional constraints of the lot require that the footprint of the basin be smaller than what the 1 foot freehold of the spillway would require. Section 187.13.B1, the minimum allowable pipe size is 15 inches. Where headroom is restricted, equivalent pipe arches may be used in lieu of circular pipe. Here, the pipe size is reduced because of the lack of sufficient cover. Section 187-13.B5, all pipes shall be designed to provide at least 18 inches of cover over the bell of the pipe. Storm piping shall not be permitted under buildings. Here again, ductile iron pipe is proposed because of the insufficient cover and shallow berm depth. Section 191-36.D, all driveways except for single-family dwellings shall have curb meetings meeting the specifications of the Falls Township design details and practices. Here we received a variance from the zoning ordinance section 209-42.D, where we requested to not provide curbing. Next waiver, section 191-37.B. Again, a curbing requirement, curbing meeting the specifications of the Falls Township design details and practices shall be installed for all parking facilities except for single-family dwellings and driveway parking associated with other dwellings as defined in Chapter 209. Here again, a zoning ordinance variance was granted from Section 209-42.D, where the applicant does not propose curbing. Next waiver, this is number 9, Section 191-37.E, no less than a 5-foot radius of curvature shall be permitted for all curb lines and parking areas. Again, we requested and received the curbing variance. Next waiver, number 10, Section 191-37.G1, curbed planing islands shall be located at each end of a parking row. Again, a variance was granted for the curbing. Again, another curbing for 191-37G2, curbed raised planting beds shall be planted with 1 shade tree per bed. We received the curbed variance. Section 191-37G4, all parking areas shall have at least 1 tree, 1 1/2 inch caliber minimum for every 6 parking spaces in single rows, and 1 tree of 1 1/2 inch caliber minimum for every 12 parking spaces and double loaded rows of parking spaces. Here we again received the curbing variance, and also street trees are proposed in the vicinity of the 11 space parking area and perform the same function. And the 6-foot parking area is surrounded by impervious surface. Section 191-38A, all parking areas and walkways thereto, and passageways and driveways serving apartments, townhouses, or commercial, industrial, or other similar land development having common off-street parking and/or loading areas, and building complexes requiring area lighting shall be adequately illuminated. Here we received lighting variances from the zoning ordinance sections 209-40 and 209-42.C, which were granted by the zoning hearing board. And finally, number 14, section 191-38B, again, a lighting requirement where the lighting plan in and around the parking areas, private driveways, and walkways shall provide non-glare lights focused downward. Here we received lighting variances from the zoning hearing board, again, section 209-40 and 209-42.C. And that is all of the waivers we are requesting.
Board questions? Excuse me. Is there any board questions?
So for 187-13B1, minimum's 15 inches. What size are you going with?
Kevin, do you have that answer offhand? Kevin, are you frozen? I will, I'll get
I
that.
believe the answer is, I think 6 inches is the minimum pipe size.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, that's all I had.
Mr. Crow,
Good.
any questions? Mr. Haney? Is there any public comment? Dave?
We have no public comment.
Mr. Jones, you'd like to add anything?
I just asked the applicant to confirm or affirm that they have no objection to the stipulations we indicated in our review for the stormwater management waivers.
No objection.
That's all I have.
There's no other questions. I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I guess I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to accept preliminary and final land development application on Tyburn Road Associates, 418 Tyburn Road, TMP number 13-028-066 and 31-028 and 068 zoned planned industrial park district, Township of Falls, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, JEA project number LD 21-0707, date of plan June 15th, 2020. I'm following the Joneses letters, guys. First waiver is 19136D. Second waiver is 19137B. Next waiver is 13137E. Also a waiver for 19137G1, 19137G2, 19137G4, 19138A, 19138B, and then 18712E. Also waivers for 18712I, 18712L, 18713B1, 18713B5, and I don't know if we have to do this one because we're already doing it right now, 191.8D.
Mr. Crow, I think one that was not mentioned was 19178C2, which has to do with that aerial photograph again.
191, what did you say?
78C2.
191. Oh, there it is, okay. Okay, and with a waiver, 19178C2.
There's second? John Haney, second. Mr. Haney, second. Poll the board, please.
Colin Henderson,
Yes.
John Henney,
Yes.
Edward Crow, yes. Brian Binney.
I abstain.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Last item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from last month.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for last month.
All in favor?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Second.